Well, number one, thanks for everyone for attending this press conference here today. We'll share some new details that we've been finding out over the last few days since our last press conference here. With me today, I have different representatives here, so you'll be able to ask them questions here representing the Kansas Forestry Service, Emergency Management, the Sheriff's Department, United Way, and also my fire marshal is here from Hutchinson Fire Department. So when we get done wrapping up my presentation here, we'll open up for questions from the floor. So as of 8 o'clock this morning here, crews continue to make great progress. They are actually working a little over 26 miles of perimeter around this fire. And that's, I think it came out to 26.2 miles actually of perimeter fire that they're still working on. We continue to have a few flare-ups due to the heavy timber. The crew reported even finding some tires on fire and some different things. We anticipate that to continue for the next probably few days or even into next week. But we're getting closer to getting this fire closer to 100%. Right now I would say we're roughly around 95% contained. And we'll see what type of moisture we get here today or tonight with the predicted snowfall. And that will definitely have an impact on our progressions. But we continue to monitor around the clock the fire area, and especially the perimeter with the shifting winds that we have here. Also, we've started the investigation here. As reported, a brush fire did start this fire. I'll turn the questions over as we go forward here to Mike Kane. Anything else that he can answer? Some things that we cannot answer yet at this time, which you'll find out. You guys were distributed a map. We're going to go through some of that right now with you. A couple things that I want to show you. This is actually a satellite map. Okay, they always say Big Brother's watching. Well, Big Brother is watching. And so satellite imagery that we were able to pull up here, the green area here predicts where the fire started. Okay, and you can sort of see as the fire progresses, it's making a track here. And what's unique about this map that I really want to show you is that this fire here in the yellows here is where we believe it started really getting some intensity. And it actually started spotting new fires and jumping over areas, and this yellow over here shows where fires were spotted, a quarter mile, even maybe up to a half mile away from the other fire. So we talk about that a lot in our wildfires, where the fire it creates its own energy, it creates its own storm basically. And so we've seen that here with satellite imagery. From this point here, over by the Clydesdale area, the fire just sort of sprawled out. Once it got through the Cottonwood area, all the heavy timber that was in the Cottonwood with all the heavy cedar trees and all the other species of grasses and different things that were there. So we talk about that a lot. Why do people get trapped? And why do other homes start on fire that might not be another one? Is because, again, this fire is creating flames up to 100 feet in length, and these embers are flying over half a mile, dropping down and landing on different areas. And so we depicted that right from the satellite imagery, and I thought it was just a great shot for you guys to see what we're actually seeing out on the fire grounds here. We talked about the three fingers that the fire actually created, and you can sort of see them here too, were the three fingers that we were battling a little bit on the big picture of things here. So the next one I have here, and you have a copy of this map in front of you here, please take that with you if you'd like. But this again shows the red areas here where we had the homes that were destroyed in the area, along with the buildings and properties of the homes saved. And again here, this is the red line around the perimeter. That's really where the guys are really concentrating a lot of their efforts and work on. That's at 26.1 or 26.2 miles of perimeter fire that we're working on. And again, just to emphasize that is the reason we concentrate so much on the perimeter, below that fire line there, that's all native grasses and prairies and pasture grass and heavy timbers too. So we want to make sure that none of the embers in that perimeter come and land in that new adjacent grassland. The property lines, that's sort of self-explanatory, but this is a good representation of what we found and what the firefighters had to deal with and where the homes were destroyed or damaged. The Reno County is really stepped up here along with other citizens throughout Reno County and adjacent properties. The United Way of Reno County is, and the volunteers have stepped up to help these homeowners in our area. I talked this morning here at another interview here this morning, and I don't think people truly understand the devastation that took place here sometimes. We talk about floods, we talk about tornadoes, we talk about other, today, blizzard conditions up north basically almost. We talk about all these different storms, but when a fire comes through an area and people lose everything, they lose everything. We have people out there right now sifting through the ashes, trying to find a piece of jewelry, trying to find a ring, trying to find something that they can tie back to their home, their family, their loved ones. And the stories that I'm hearing as chief are just unreal. I mean, and so these people literally lost everything. The stuff that we all take for granted, getting up in the morning and going to brushing your teeth or getting dressed or whatever it is, they have nothing. And so we need your help here at United Way. If you can donate it, donate any type of money or materials or anything, please call the United Way of Reno County at 211. They need your help. These people need your help. And it's a plea, it's a cry for getting these people back and get their lives, try to get them back to somewhat normalcy. With that, again, like I said, we'll be monitoring the fire all day long today yet. We still have crews cruising the perimeter line and working these hot spots. We are getting much closer. We've been making repairs on our equipment. Some of our equipment that was damaged, we did have one fire truck, brush 41, the back of the truck basically was burnt up for the most part. And one of the light bar on top that you see, the emergency lights, was melted on one of the sides. And actually, when the guys tried to escape out of the conditions they were in, they backed into a bunch of trees and bent a bunch of stuff up on the back end and different things. The stories that these men and women went through during this fire and other fires is there's heroic actions left and right. I did receive an email from a victim that lives on Victory Road here from a lady that said, Chief, I need to tell you my story. She came out and she said, and I know there's all kinds of stories, this is just one of many, but she said, I came out of my house and she said, I looked for my car and my car was on fire. And she said, I looked the other way and she said a Hutch brush truck came in and got me out of there. And so she said, you guys and your men and women, everybody in support roles are all part of that rescue. I know the sheriff officers, I'm sure they got a ton of stories too that way. And down the road here, I said it, I think at the last press conference, down the road here in the next week or two, I want to get every one of these agencies back here, have the sheriff's department here, have our men and women, have some of the volunteer firefighters that were out there working, tell their stories to you guys and gals here, because some of these stories are hopefully once in a lifetime, but they need to be told. You need to hear what they faced on the front lines battling this horrific fire here. So with that being said here, I'll open it up for any questions.
First question I have for you, Chief, is that you guys have been dealing with a bunch of wildfires over the last few weeks, some smaller ones before this one. Just talk to me kind of about the morale of the crew, the exhaustion that you guys I'm sure are facing, because like you said, I mean, you have a marathon's length of perimeter that you guys are trying to take care of right now. What's the feeling right now after having this, probably the third wildfire since the start of the year that you guys have had to deal with?
This is actually, I don't have a number, but even last week we were running, before this big one here, we were running 1 to 3 brush fires a day. Most of them never makes the news because we contain them real fast. So it's just an ongoing thing here that we've been battling here in Reno County. I stopped at Station 4 before I came into work this morning and had a chat with the men and women at that station. And, you know, they knew what they have to do when they sign up to do the job, the dedication, when they raised their right hand and took the oath of office. they knew that. But I can tell they're beat, they're tired, they're exhausted. Right now, I'm more worried about the mental aspect of my employees. We're a young department. Almost 55% of my department is under 5 years experience. And again, the stuff that these men and women do, whether it's this brush fire or a car accident or whatever it may be, the average public citizen has no idea what they just went through. And so it's my job as chief to take care of my number one asset is my people. And now we start on the mental side of the thing and making sure that they get help when needed, and we're starting that process.
And what does that look like? Is it just, maybe working with the city or county to get some therapist help or some time off? What does that look like?
Yeah, it is. The city of Hutchinson does have a program. It's called Impact, and where they have a core group out of Wichita, therapists and stuff that are lined up that come in, and they have one-on-one sessions with employees to help them deal and cope with the devastation, even recovering a body. And stuff like that. That's just not normal, and in a career, it takes a toll. And years ago in the fire service, and probably the police department, sheriff can probably answer that, you did it and you just moved on. And we just had ways of dealing with different things, and that way is no longer acceptable. We value and we got to make sure that we take care of our number one asset is our employees.
And like Jackson mentioned, this isn't the first fire we've seen that's been caused by burning brush piles. I guess, what is the protocol, or is there any supervision required for someone to burn these brush piles? Can you explain what that process is like?
Yeah, I can, and actually I'm going to turn it over to Adam here from the county here. He's got he understands the burn ordinance and what we're trying to change there, and where we stand on that.
So currently in the county, there's a burn resolution that was drafted in 2017 that governs all burning in Reno County. That's agricultural burning or brush piles. And everyone's supposed to follow that resolution. By the resolution, they're supposed to call into our non-emergency dispatch number and advise what they're burning and start their burn within 30 minutes. The responsible party of that burn is required to stay on scene until that fire is extinguished and no longer poses a threat to the community. And there's a couple things in that burn resolution that we'll get with our commissioners and try to change in the near future. We meet with them in study session on the 22nd. So we'll be talking about that burn resolution in depth and things that we can do to really put some more teeth behind it. That way we can hopefully prevent some of these incidents from happening in the future. Another thing the county recently implemented was a burn ban. Through the month of March, there's no burning allowed in Reno County. The only exemptions are ceremonial fires, cooking fires, grills, things like that. There will not be brush piles burning. There will not be agricultural burning allowed in Reno County. We understand that could upset some of our ag people, some of our farmers that need to get their CRP field burned, but they have to understand the human side of it and everything that Reno County has lost, especially the people, the individuals who have lost their homes. Actually, absolutely devastating to us. So through the month of March, no burning in Reno County. We'll resume again. We'll continue to monitor, and hopefully in April, things will be greened up a little bit and they can conduct burns in a safer manner.
And with this particular brush pile burn, do we know if those proper protocols were taken? Did they do the right steps?
I can't speak to that.
Mike, you want to talk on what you can say?
Mike Kane, Fire Marshal, Hutch Fire Department. That still is part of the ongoing investigation, so we won't be releasing any of that at this time.
Is there any?
Have you turned any of this information? I know from the fire 2 weeks ago, some of this have been turned over to the sheriff's department. Has this been turned over to law enforcement too for their investigation?
We're working together, myself and detectives from the sheriff's department. We'll compile all the information and take it to the DA.
Has anything come about from the fire 2 weeks ago from the entity that may have been responsible for the 2 fires 2 weeks ago?
It has not yet. That's still an ongoing investigation also.
So do you think this was a new burn, or was this still from 2 weeks ago?
I believe this was still from two weeks ago. On that, back if you remember the 3rd and 4th of February, we had a snow cover. At that time, we had 87 calls throughout the county for controlled burns. 86 of those were for brush piles, and 1 was for trash. People still do that out in the county. That's how they get rid of their trash. So of those 86, all being brush piles, and we're not talking people burn 1 brush pile per time. We're talking 10, 15, 20. They take the opportunity to burn everything that they can when there's snow on the ground. So we have had, just in the Hutchinson area, 6 rekindles since that time of brush piles, to include the Albright fire and the Linksland fire. And then 5 other calls of piles that have rekindled but not spread outside of their containment area.
The investigation's still ongoing, but if it is found that, there was some sort of either illegal burning or something like that, is there a possibility that there may, be some charges filed or something like that? Talk to us a little bit about what the possible ramifications or punishment there could be for the person who maybe started this.
I can't speak to the ramifications or the punishment. That again, between myself and the sheriff's department, will compile all of our information and take it to the DA and sit down and discuss it with him and see where he wants to go with that.
Chief, I know you've expressed some frustration over these brush piles when we talked 2 weeks ago. About the other things that are part of this, especially that 1 square mile Victory Road, and then the 2 private roads, Palomino and Clydesdale, and the inability to ingress and egress from those areas and fight fires like this that are moving so fast. Is it time to start putting pressure on landowners, even in these areas that are not zoned, and start trying to apply a little influence to try to fix this situation? Because I drove back there the other day. It's impossible to get in and out of there with a pickup, much less a fire truck.
Well, it starts, I think the recommendations that are coming forward on the 22nd by 7 different entities that are professionals in this area, from planning all the way through, have some great recommendations. It's challenging when you understand the history of them roads here. Was my understanding that road is not a township road. That's not a county road. The citizens basically grade their roads back in there. And with all the blow sand that we deal with back in there, it's pretty much a 1 little lane road. Or not, like I said, not even a road, a path, a 2-track, whatever you want to call it. But the part of the planning part for me, whether it's city planning, county planning, it's got to start there in the planning division, because how were homes allowed to be subdivided back in the day, knowing that there's no infrastructure, no roads or anything? That's where it starts. It starts in planning. When actually you drive in there, and I'm not sure if you guys picked up on this, but if you drive down like Palomino and some of the places there, when you look at the homes that were saved versus the ones that were lost, and we harp on this over and over, if you're going to help your local fire department, we need a defendable space. And we're asking for like 100 feet or more around your home. The ones off Palomino and them areas, the homes that survived, you typically will not see, you might see 1 or so, but there's no cedar trees within 100 feet. They have metal roofs on them. They still have regular trees growing there, whether it's a cottonwood, whether it's a maple, oak, or whatever, but all them homes survived. And the ones that have cedar trees right next to their home, they're all destroyed. And so these cedar trees are like a blowtorch when they go up. And so if the homeowners are not investing in their property, making changes, there's nothing that we can do. We could have and I believe we do have the best fire department. We have the best mutual aid partners you can find that are used to handling these type of situations. There's nothing anybody here is going to do. them homes are gonna be written off, and that's a struggle that we have. Even with the homes, if we come up on a home and it's just started on fire, there's nothing we're gonna do in a 40, 50 mile an hour wind. We have to triage, and we basically write that home off since it started on fire, and we're off to the next one to save it down the road. There's only so many fire trucks, even with all our mutual aid partners and everything, there's only so many pieces of equipment. And so if our citizens are not gonna help us out there and help make defendable space, there's not a lot that we can do as a fire department. On the Albright fire, we saved a place here on Albright fire. Our guys went in and they cut down with chainsaws numerous cedar trees before the fire front hit that place, and basically saved that property, pole shed and the individual's home. We got done with that night. That individual actually came back and bought the fire department like 20 pizzas, and he was in tears crying, thanking the men and women that saved his home. But we had to get in there before the fire front came down and actually cut down trees to save his place. And sometimes we can do that, and sometimes we can't. Sheriff, would you want to comment on any of the other things here about what Mike just talked about with the charges and all, or?
It's pretty much like Mike had stated, a lot of our information we have gathered from the investigation, we just can't disclose right now. We have to, meet with Mike, sit down with the district attorney, and then let him make that decision what he wants to do.
I know there's a chance that there was just a single entity responsible for the two fires 2 weeks ago. Is that same, because they're being contracted out to do this brush pile work and burning, is this connected to that entity, this latest?
Yeah, like I was saying, I really can't disclose any of that information right now, sorry.
I can tell you though that the prior 3 larger fires around Hutchinson are not tied to this one. Okay, that's a fair statement that individual is not tied into this fire at all.
Thank you.
I think we need to clear that individual's name and stuff like that, so.
I've got a question for you, United Way, if you want to go up there. Just simply, now that people have been able to go back to their properties, and it's been a couple days, they're kind of assessing more of what they lost. What is the most dire things you need? Is it just simply everything, or what's kind of coming more to the forefront now that we've had a couple days?
So we're working with partners to get household items, clothes and things like that, excuse me, to these families as they need them. Toiletry items are some things that we've asked for, and the community has come out in droves to help with. But honestly, monetary donation is going to be what goes the farthest for these families. We've spoke with multiple families that didn't have insurance, so they're going to be starting over with nothing.
And then real quick, can you give us your name and title for us to have?
My name is Denise Gilliland, and I'm the Community Impact Coordinator for the United Way of Reno County.
I also want to touch on one thing. So our Voad, our Volunteer Organization Active in Disaster, Reno County is very unique in what our Voad does for us. And they really got started approximately 8 years ago with flooding. And then 5 years ago, almost exactly when we had the Highlands fire, this Voad really stepped up and they manage all the funds coming in. So 100% of the donations that come into the United Way get managed by the case managers at the Voad, and they go directly back out to the community. There's no fees that are taken out of there. 100% of your donated dollars goes directly to these wildfire victims. Like she spoke about, there's quite a few without insurance. There'll be months worth of work. I mean, the volunteers will go out there, they'll remove foundations, they'll help clean up property. They just do amazing work for the community.
Talk about that, because the MARC event was held yesterday, and there were just so many things that you don't even think of. Department of Aging had forms to fill out so you could recover documents, and the county website, and we've had posted the list of the agencies and the things that you need to go through to get your documents replaced. I mean, the list is huge. Talk about that event yesterday, and do you feel it was a good step in getting some of that recovery process started?
So the Multi-Agency Resource Center, or the MARC that was held on Tuesday, is really the first piece to helping these individuals, these victims of this wildfire, getting their life back together. The idea behind that is a one-stop shop so they can get access to every single service that Reno County can provide to them, and they're not having to contact a bunch of different agencies. I know they're starting the Raleigh Reno County site again, so if you miss the mark, they can go out and get access to those same benefits. But I've been handling phone calls every single day from some of the victims that think, well, I can only get help for 2 or 3 days from the Red Cross or Salvation Army. That's simply not true. That's where our Voad comes in, and it's a strong group. It's helped people for months on end. And it's, if you need the help, you gotta reach out and ask for it or work with our case managers, because we're gonna provide, we're gonna put all kinds of effort into it and provide you with as much help as possible to get you back on your feet. We really have to give a lot of credit to United Way, and they're taking on a lot of extra work, and they're not seeing any sort of benefit from it at all.
Is the best way to contact the Voad just through United Way 211, or is there another number that we should put out there as well?
So for individuals needing help, you can contact the United Way of Reno County or 211. You can also go online to rallyreno.org, and there is a form that you can fill out, and a caseworker will get with them within 24 hours. So those are some ways that individuals who are in need of help can reach out to us.
The memories are going to last a long time. The scar out there and the 26 miles of perimeter stuff that we're dealing with are going to last for years. And as these people rebuild their lives, we're so fortunate to have groups like the United Way, Emergency Management, and their teams, really spurring the recovery part of this. That's not seen everywhere either, and it's really unique to have the volunteer step up in Reno County. And bottom line, we need your support. We need to get the message out. We need some dollars to come in. We need to buy some gift cards and et cetera for these individuals to help them get them back on their feet. And so whatever you can do out there, please call 211 or get a hold of the numbers that she just said.
I have a question for the guy from the Kansas Forest Service. We had talked, if you could give me your name, please.
Yeah, I'm Rodney Redinger, and I'm the Assistant Fire Management Officer of Operations for the Kansas Forest Service.
We have talked about this for the last 5 years, since Chief had just gotten here right about the time the Highlands fire had gotten going. Is there coming a time now where it's just gonna say, look, we have got to rid the area of the nuisance that is a part of this landscape, and that the red cedars, I mean, they're like a glazed stick of dynamite. When fire hits them, they just explode. Is it time to just make an effort to just rid the area of this and take some very proactive steps to make sure that this kind of stuff just doesn't happen anymore?
Yeah, so obviously it all comes down to budget and money, and it's an interesting dynamic that in Kansas it's mostly private land, and so there are grant programs like cost share type grants that we can do, but as far as managing the landscape goes, there definitely now's the time to take some steps to managing the fuel that we have, for sure.
Well, this is just such a unique area because it's just a 3 mile by like 20 mile area that is basically lynx land. It's not like really anything else in Kansas. It's just a big giant sand dune full of trees that make it difficult for them to fight fires and just add so much more fuel to what's normally just pasture land.
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely a unique part of the state, and we've been visiting, like you said, we've been looking at things for the last 5 years. Some of the things that we've been able to do, at least to start with, is with some legislative money that we got, was hire a fuels guy that's his primary focus, is to work with landowners, talk about steps to be taken to manage their land to reduce fuel loading.
Thank you.
One thing I want to expand on that, Rod, is that, and I'm not sure if people truly understand this, is that it's sort of a double-edged sword here, is you have a lot of outfitters in Reno County, and they pay top dollar for deer hunting land. And so a lot of these landowners will get anywhere from $5,000 to $12,000 yearly check to help them pay their taxes, maybe go to Mexico or on a vacation or whatever. And so it's a business. And they want to have this type of terrain to bring their clients in and stuff like that. So a lot of land are here too. And so that brings a challenge in itself from that aspect of it. So they're looking for the land, and we're looking to, and I'm not telling everybody to, I want to make it very clear, even on the residential properties, I'm not asking everybody to go in and cut down every single tree. That's not what we're asking. We're asking you to just manage it. You know, if you got 3 trees together, cut 2, I'll keep 1 type thing if they're the cedar trees. We're not asking you to totally wipe out your 10, 20 acres of trees. Nobody wants that. Trees are a good thing, but what's going on here, and another thing we really haven't talked about yet in any of the press conferences here, is that people need to understand that these cedar trees, they drink anywhere from 30 to 60 gallons of water per day. Okay, that's a lot of water per tree, is we've been told by the Kansas Forestry Service here on that part of it too. And it's obviously they drink more in the summertime when it's drier compared to the winter. But the point of this whole thing, it dries out the grasses real fast, and it keeps things super dry. And when you talk to some of the other fires that have been in the state of Kansas, specifically out west, where they had some devastating fires, where the fires have gone through, they have actually streams running where they never had running in the last 50 years because the cedars were all burned up now. And so they're seeing some of the benefits. And I do believe there's a map that's going to be presented on the 22nd that takes a look at this area from 50 years ago. 50 years ago, there was almost all pasture land with cattle on it. And we didn't have all these native or invasive species around. And so as more of the land has gone into homeowners, to farmettes, to just hobby farms or whatever we want to call them, it's definitely changed the landscape. And with how fast these cedars grow, it's a never-ending battle.
Real quick, just a couple of questions. One is, I know obviously this was a mutual aid situation because it was such a large fire. How many total agencies assisted you all win this? Do you have those numbers?
We're still calculating that, and that's a great question too, because actually Rodney here from the Kansas Forestry Service offered up a finance specialist from the Kansas Forestry Service. She's actually working with Becky, my administrative secretary in the back there. Them two are in the same office here, and they're collecting and compiling all the data and the numbers here as we speak to help us get with that FMAG, put in for that FMAG grant down the road here. So this finance specialist, she goes all over. That's what she specializes in, to make sure we get, try to recoup as many costs as we can here.
And then lastly, just when is that? You said the 22nd is that meeting. What time? Or anything like that? Just for all
It's at approximately 11 o'clock. It's directly after the Board of County Commissioners scheduled meeting. Their meeting starts at 9, so it's as soon as that gets over.
Would you be able to give us any expectations of what to hear for those recommendations at that meeting, or are you guys still working?
We have a document we put together and send it to the commission, usually before the study sessions. That stuff will get published.
How long do people have to get out of their homes? When this was approaching them, how much time do they really have?
Minutes. Minutes. And some that probably didn't even have that. And I think, you know, it's always, I look at if people watch the nightly news and they see the fires in California, and you see both sides of the road on fire, you see the devastation that Colorado, some of these were wiped off entire communities, burnt up. That's what it was like here. That's how fast these things come through. They have the Santa Ana winds out in California that they deal with a lot. We have the Kansas winds that we deal with. And when we start getting into the 30 mile, 40, 50 mile an hour winds, people just don't have to have the time. They have to have a plan. If you choose to live out in certain areas in rural Kansas, you better have a bag packed and have your possessions all stored up in one bag where you can just basically grab that bag and go. Because there is not much warning. As fast as the sheriff's department could get ahead of us evacuating, if I look at some of the pictures that their men and women were going through, and again, I'm sure they got some horrendous stories in front of the fire front, basically. it's just incredible what they had to face to try to get people notified in them conditions, and they literally had minutes.
Talk about that procedure, because you couldn't obviously go from west to east, get these people, turn around and turn back to the west.
I mean,
That was not an option. Talk about the procedures for when you went in there and got people out,
I mean,
or at least tried to get them out.
Yeah, once we had the people on scene, it was kind of a scramble. I mean, the units we had available, we just sent them up to those areas where the homes were and just started the evacuations as quick as we could.
So where did you take them? Did you go east then, out into the county,
Well, it kind
and
of
try to find a way out?
You know,
or-
off the area of the Palomino area, they started going north, and then just everything went east from there.